Jackson Gosnell is an independent journalist. He's the host of Jackson Gosnell Live in Brilyn. Hollyhand is a RNC Youth Advisory Council co-chair. She's also the host. He's also the host of the Brilyn Hollyhand Show, and they just both join us now. What's up, fellas?
Thanks for having us.
Good to be with you.
Glad to have you both on here. You both are Gen Z. So what does that mean? Let's start with defining our generations, okay? I believe Gen Zers, if I know this correctly, are they roughly like 16 to 26, 16 to 30? Is that the age of a Gen Zer? How old are you fellas? Brilyn, how old are you?
I'm 19. I start college this semester at Auburn, and I think it's typically around that age, the 16 to 18 range, and then we go up to sometimes 35. It just kind of depends on the group.
All right. And Jackson?
I'm 21, and yeah, I agree. It's right around like 28 or so.
Okay, we got a War Eagle here, and we're represented well on the table, by the way.
I
we
love
got
it,
Auburn
War Eagle.
represented. Where are you in school or working right now, Jackson?
I go to the University of South Carolina.
All right, the other USC represented here. USC
right.
and Auburn represented here on Will Cain Country. Okay, fellas, let's start light before we have to get heavy. I don't know that I fully understand this story. Sydney Sweeney, bet you fellas know who that is. Sydney Sweeney is, with her new ad with American Eagle, being accused, I guess, of being a Nazi? I don't know. The ad campaign features Sydney Sweeney in a good-looking pair of jeans. You know, she's blonde, she's blue-eyed, and in it, she like spray paints out or crosses out good genes, I believe, G-E-N-E-S, with jeans, J-E-A-N-S. That's led to headlines like this from Yahoo. Sydney Sweeney's American Eagle ad faces backlash for racial undertone. The Washington Post. How American Eagle Sydney Sweeney good jeans ad went wrong. NBC News. American Eagle sparks backlash by touting Sydney Sweeney's great jeans. In fact, here, let's take a look to help us understand a little more. There's a little bit of video.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
Sydney Sweeney has great genes.
There you have it. Sydney Sweeney has great genes. I don't get it, fellas. Help me understand. How does this make Sydney Sweeney a Nazi? We'll start with you, Brilyn.
Well, it doesn't. I mean, what I think the best part of this is Sydney Sweeney didn't even say a word, and she still triggered the entire left. She didn't give a political speech. She didn't put on a MAGA hat. She didn't attend a Trump rally. All she did was promote a jean brand and have an American flag, and that right there proves just how fragile wokeness has become today. I mean, the American flag being controversial to some people. To some people, flying the pride flags outside of our federal buildings is a little controversial, yet we don't have people uproar over that. It's a crazy concept to just see just how fragile and emotional they've become, and that's why they've scared off young men. They're doing this whole study, spending millions and millions of dollars at the DNC right now of how did we lose young men last election? I can tell you it's stuff like this. So first of all, not just wanting to embrace Sydney Sweeney as a campaign, but second, attacking her for being pro-American. It's an odd concept, Will.
You know, Jackson, I wonder, like, is it the invocation of genetics? Are we now to deny that genetics has some role in science, that it has some role in reality? We all know that genetics can lead to height, good looks, athletic ability, intelligence. But Donald Trump loves to invoke genes as well. He's got good genes. He says it a lot, you know. And we used to say that. That used to be a thing we said more, good genes. Maybe we didn't say it like Donald Trump. But now it's like that has become the acknowledgement of genetics, something bad. Or maybe it said it was described as good genes, which I don't even think they talked about. She was suggesting it was a wordplay for her blue jeans. But I don't get it. Like all of a sudden now, jeans are Nazi?
Right. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. I think Harris Faulkner said it best on Outnumbered. They're going to look for something, right? You're going to find something if you're looking for something. But the normal person, this wouldn't even cross their mind that this is racist or whatever they're alleging. I think it's absolutely bananas. And I think people need to get a job and find something to do, because if you have enough time to go and analyze ads, you should be working and contributing to society. You know, I think that attacking her personally is just going the extra step that we know the left to do. They try and cancel people. They should have figured out that cancel culture doesn't work. I mean, we saw that in the last election, people rejected all of this, especially young people. People are tired of having to tiptoe around and be careful and talk in these big word salads to get their point across because they don't want to offend anybody. It turns out to stuff like this. I'm astonished that the media is still writing headlines like this, because you would think they would learn that the people aren't buying this, but apparently they're not.
Yeah, I agree. It does, but it does feel like a cornered or wounded animal. They're just lashing out at random stuff right now, but I'm not sure their claws are hitting anything. Meanwhile, it was all the news coverage yesterday. So a 27-year-old man played high school football, leaving a note that suggested he might be suffering from CTE. Certainly had mental health conditions. From what I understand, the reporting is now that he had 2 mental health holds. A mental health hold is when you're taken to a hospital and held for 72 hours in his life. Walked into a building in downtown or midtown Manhattan and seemingly targeted the offices of the NFL. It was home to Blackstone, KPMG, this high-rise, and the NFL. He ended up in the property management offices of the 33rd floor. He killed 4 people between the lobby of the building and those offices. And this is a little bit of how it was covered yesterday on CNN.
Among them that they did get, they do know what he looks like. Sunglasses, mustache, male, possibly white.
Interesting. Pictures were out almost immediately. He didn't look white. He's not white. But that's CNN's reflex reaction. And then there's the Cincinnati police chief who, then there is Curtis Sliwa, who's running for mayor in New York City as a Republican, talking about some of the issues here and what we can maybe do to stop incidences like this. Here's Curtis Sliwa.
Sean, we don't have enough police. We desperately need more police, and we need photo recognition technology so that they can spot people right away with the technology we have, walking around boldly, brazenly with guns, so we can preemptively do something. And clearly this man was on a mission. But my concern, Sean, is there are potential terrorists watching how easy it is to walk through the streets of New York City, to carry an AR-15, to walk into a corporate world headquarters that represents capitalism and then slaughter people indiscriminately.
So we have mental health issues. Curtis Sliwa says we need more police. And then finally, Congressman Dan Goldman of New York says it's not yet another example of the need for gun control and banning, quote unquote, assault weapons. I would defy Dan Goldman and any other Democrat to define an assault weapon. They can't define a woman. I know they can't define an assault weapon. But you have 3 potential issues being raised in the first 24 hours. Mental health, guns, the need for more police. What do you think, Brilyn?
Well, Will, it's after tragedies like this. I mean, the left loves to make Republicans the boogeyman of the situation. I've got news for them, though. I mean, it's not the NRA that's committing these mass shootings. It's criminals that the left themselves let back out onto the streets. I mean, you just shared it. Their solution time and time again to this gun violence is to disarm the good guys. But the real solution here is what you hit on in your monologue. It's to arm the right people to let them protect us in this situation, to stop him from getting to that 34th floor, to prevent that in the lobby with armed security. I mean, this is also one of those tragedies that the left always loves to exploit for emotions to attempt to win over Gen Z because they can't win us on principles alone. And at the end of the day, I mean, when an evil person walks into a room with a gun, our generation wants the good guys ready to stop him. It's that simple. That's what we've had in schools. It's been successful the past few years, and we would love to see more of that, not this ideological, craziness that the left continues to put out there. And it's why Gen Z continues to move away from the left, because they put crazy stuff like this.
Okay, that's what I believe as well, Brilyn. As you mentioned, I do believe the only solution for a bad guy with a gun ultimately is a good guy with a gun. And I'm going to explain why in just a moment, but I want to do it by process of elimination. I want to go through these other things. And Jackson, I'll go to you on this. Let's talk for a minute about mental health. This guy bought a gun apparently when he was 22. Between the ages of 22 and 27, he had 2 mental health holds. That means he was taken to the hospital and held for 72 hours. Now, some are pointing out, shouldn't that mean maybe a gun confiscation? If he bought the gun after that, that's a whole different problem. But people are saying that doesn't show up on a background check. That's HIPAA protected. Your health issues are not available for things like a background check. And I do sit there and wonder, first on mental health, like we can all acknowledge we should and we have. That's a problem. We have a crisis of mental health. But I don't know that we can solve this legally by looking at it through the prism of mental health. We can maybe parentally, we can maybe individually, we can maybe even culturally and as a society. But I don't know how you take away someone's rights, and people may not like this, because they have a health issue, even a mental health issue. We may think it's right to do so, but I think we should take a minute to indulge it. Like, well, does depression mean you lose your rights? Does a bipolar disorder mean you lose your rights? Does ADHD mean you lose your rights? Like, what are the issues? What is the mental health? Who is the expert? Who's the psychologist? Where is it that you lose your rights? And I find that a very difficult question to answer.
Yeah, I mean, I would say so too. I agree that there's a mental health crisis in this country. Unfortunately, there's been no real wonderful way to deal with it, and I think everybody's still figuring that out. And then to your point about the background check, and not only the mental health concern being HIPAA protected, but also that was in the future after he purchased the gun, from what I understand. And so, I mean, what, these people wanted the background check to be a psychic and foresee the mental health problems in the future? You can't do that. They happened at a later time. So that argument that should have been on a background check, we should just get rid of that immediately, because that's unfathomable at the time that he went and got his gun. But furthermore, on the mental health front, look, I think, you know, people have diabetes. We don't prevent them from going and eating at candy stores. So I don't know if the mental health thing is going to get people's guns taken away, or if it should. I mean, certainly it has in previous situations. I guess we'll have to see with time. But unfortunately, the mental health issue is big, and we don't have a perfect solution.
Well, and you have to kind of acknowledge the obvious, which is I think everybody listening and watching right now is like, I don't want sick people, mentally sick people, or insane people to have a gun. Everybody can say that.
Right.
But then we have to move beyond saying it. Like, how do you implement that? That's a really, really hard thing to implement. Not just practically, like, can you implement it, but like, how do you even draw up the laws on that? Like, when do you write the law down? Who's going to diagnose somebody? What doctor are you giving the power to essentially start stripping rights? This is a right. It's a Second Amendment right. What doctor are you giving that power to? And what's the threshold? What does the person have to be diagnosed with, acting like? So I agree. I don't want sick people with guns, but I don't know how to even write. We should all together. If you're in the comment section, I ask you, be a lawyer, be a legislator, write a law. I'm serious. Go to the comment section. I'd love to hear from you, Alicia. Write something down that you think is bulletproof, that wouldn't be abused or misapplied, even misapplied to average Americans. I don't know that we can come up with a neat solution. Taking me to number 2. And both of you can jump in. Brilyn, Jackson, if you have something, you jump in. Curtis Sliwa, we need more cops. Okay, that's also an easy thing to say. But I don't think it's a solution. Yeah, we need good cops. We don't need cities like New York and Cincinnati, for that matter, where it seems to be there's not enough protection. But you're never going to be able to hire enough cops to stop all the bad guys. What are you going to get to? A 1-to-1 ratio? Like a cop for every bad guy, a cop for every bad thing that happens? They can't be everywhere all at once. You're not going to solve this by simply throwing defensive law enforcement measures at it. That's what I think, Brilyn.
I agree. And I think there's two sides to that. You've got Slilo, who wants, more cops, and then Mamdani, if he wants to completely defund the police. And who knows how many more lives would have unfortunately been taken if no police were able to make it to that 34th floor and, thankfully end this situation. Who knows what would have continued to happen if that horror, atrocity was actually put into place if that election does happen. And this should be a wake-up call to New York. I was there last week with Fox. People on the streets were terrified of this. The young people I talked to were saying, oh, why are our peers turning socialists and wanting to embrace that? It's going to make our streets more dangerous than they already are. This right here, if anything good can come out of it, should be a wake-up call in that situation coming up. But I'll also say about what he said towards the end of his comment last night, I think it was Hannity's show, about wanting to have more of this surveillance and security cameras like that. I understand the intention there. I get what he's trying to get out of preventing something like this before he gets in the building, of setting up some red flag system. But that's where we get into a conversation like you just brought up of getting to be something like China, where everywhere Americans go, they're surveyed. And that's something that we've obviously been very anti with the NSA doing, of every action that we do here in this free nation of America being surveyed. I don't really think that that's something that patriots would want to get a part of. Yes, should there be some type of surveillance system to prevent this? Possibly. But I don't think what he was saying, on every street corner, we can have a camera lit up on a light post preventing a situation like this.
I agree.
I think that's when we start looking like China.
I would
And I
just
think that's
add.
a potential for massive
I would
abuse.
just add. Sorry, I was
Yeah.
going to jump in here if you don't mind. I would just add to what Brilyn said. I agree with the intent. I also do have to say that, Brilyn, you were in the city last week, so was I, and I noticed a lack of police. There was not as many as had been around in previous years that I'd gone into Manhattan and other places. So I do agree that more police is necessary, but to your point, we don't want to be under continued surveillance as though we're in China. And I understand the prevention mechanisms that they want to put in place. At the same rate, we have to do better. I don't know what that looks like. Everybody always says it, but police alone is not the answer, but I certainly believe it's a critical component that we do need more police in New York.
It is.
For better or worse.
It is. I just don't think you can police state and surveillance yourself into utopia. I just don't.
That's fair.
You're still
That
gonna
is
end
fair.
up
I agree with that.
There are bad guys who will do bad things. All right. Now, then the left will say, well, but there's bad guys in every society. There's people with mental health issues in every society. It only happens in the United States because of the guns. All right. And then they'll go on the gun angle. And I'm going to give this its attention for a moment before I get to my solution. Dan Goldman, we need to put in an assault weapon ban. This guy in New York had, I believe it was an M4, an AR-15 style platform gun, which means a semi-automatic rifle, basically. But they couldn't define that. And I'm not just being hard on them. Almost no one can. It's because it's a legal construct. It's a made-up term and a marketing term in the gun industry. Like, what is an assault weapon? What makes something an assault weapon? The fact that it's semi-automatic? Well, we got semi-automatic pistols. You know, there's semi-automatic shotguns. There's semi-automatic every form of gun. Is it because they're rifles? Well, we have rifles of every kind. Bolt action, lever action, hunting rifles. Is it when you combine semi-automatic rifle, a rifle platform, and a semi-automatic? What makes something an assault weapon? And you can't. They tried. They tried this in the 90s to set a definition, and you can never. It's moving, partially because technology is moving. Gun technology, like every other technology, moves and moves and moves. And I just think, you know, it's the United States of America. It's not Sweden. You're not going to be able to do away with the Second Amendment. You're not going to be able to confiscate guns. The AR-15 platform is the most popular gun in America. What are you going to do? And the answer is, when they keep going back to this, to me, is they're avoiding a solution. By picking something, I know they can say Australia does it, but guess what? This ain't Australia, mate. This is the U.S., Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, it is the United States. We can't just jump in and lock people's guns away. And we've been hearing about assault weapons for ages, and I'm right there with you. I don't know what an assault weapon is because there's no clear definition. It seems to change with the wind. Look, I think that we've got to figure out a way to police, but also allow people to exercise their rights to keep and bear arms. You know, I live in a home where we have guns because we want to protect ourselves, and there are a lot of good people who do have guns. Having said that, there is, of course, bad people with guns too, as we saw just last night. But oftentimes, and I would say overwhelmingly, the good outweighs the bad. I mean, certainly we'll talk about this for days, and the press will write every headline imaginable. But that is a rare instance of what most gun owners are, which is law-abiding citizens who want to protect themselves. And if you can't define what an assault weapon is, or you can't give us some real clear indication of why you hate guns other than the fact that you're a leftist and you're just totally against guns, then, you know, I don't understand what we keep having this discussion for about taking guns away and trying to lock people away from their rights.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I mean,
let's stay
I
on the
think we
note of
saw-
guns, but let's move it forward.
Yeah.
Let's move forward real quick, Brilyn. I want to now set up the positive potential solution that I offer. And I'm going to do this by also bringing in the thing that happened in Cincinnati, where a couple was beaten brutally at the Jazz Fest by a mob of people. We talked yesterday about the racial components of this, but there's another component of this that I find interesting, and that is how little everyone else did. First of all, here's the police chief of Cincinnati talking about how many people actually even called 911.
For us to have 100 or so people down there involved in and or watching this event, recording with their cell phones, and for us to get only one phone call of this incident is unacceptable in this city. One person did the right thing and called 911.
One call to 911. Okay, now I'm going to tie these two stories together. I saw a picture of the thing that happened in New York at the Blackstone offices. It's really something. It looks like guy, I don't know, there might have been some gals in there as well, in the office started piling furniture against the door. I mean, it's a massive pile of couches and chairs and furniture to bar this guy in. And good for them. That's quick thinking. That's quick action. But there's something about that I'm thought, why do we have to be sitting ducks? Why do we have to cower? Why do we have to protect? Why do we have to just barricade? At some point, when it comes to these bad guys, good people have to go on offense. And in order to do that, because we can't have cops in every room, we can't have a 1-to-1 ratio, we don't want a surveillance state, we have concerns about whether or not we can apply a mental health check that actually works. To me, it's good guys with guns. It's that when that guy opens fire, he needs to know that fire is coming back at him. And I've thought about security everywhere I go, right? And the truth is, as I sit here today inside this studio, I think it's the best security I could hope for. If somebody comes in this studio, they're getting fire returned at them. I think the answer is good guys with the guns. Go ahead, Brilyn.
Well, I think good guys with guns founded this country, and it's not a crazy novel idea for good guys with guns to continue to protect the country today. I think in both situations, you look at something where there should have been more good guys. There's an image going around on social media of this person in New York walking down the sidewalk and walking into this building with an obviously large assault weapon, if that's what the left wants to call it, on his side. He could have been taken out by a good guy with a gun on the street before he even made it in the building. Unfortunately, there weren't any of that situation. You talk about the situation in Cincinnati where people wanted to be these social media warriors and take that and put it on their social media page instead of, protecting these people, their fellow Americans. It takes people, not laws, to help each other. It took those good guys with guns to revolt against England. It didn't. The Declaration of Independence was a great document, but it actually took the people getting with their guns, riding on horseback, and protecting this nation. We need some good, bold, strong men today, and that's what we saw last November. Good guys got off the sidelines, voted for the president, voted against having their freedom stripped away by Kamala Harris, and thankfully, that's what Gen Z wants. We don't want our freedom stripped.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's not laws, it's people. Jackson.
I agree.
Yeah, and I think we should encourage more young people to get their concealed carry permits. I'm planning on getting mine shortly because I feel like there's been a decline in the number of young people who have sought that out, and I think it's necessary because we live in a society where there are unfortunately bad guys with guns, as we saw yesterday, and there needs to be more good guys with guns, to your point. So I completely agree with you. I think we need to sort of revive this generation and the younger people who are 21 who can have a handgun to go and take that first step and get their concealed carry permit. Learn how to handle the gun responsibly, learn when to use it appropriately, and really protect yourself at all costs and those around you. So I think that we should really harness that in people our age and start to get that jump started a little bit more than what we've seen in previous years.
Okay, I've got two Gen Z Republicans with me here to talk about things that I think offer a perspective that I'm not capable of having. We've got Brilyn Hollyhand and Jackson Gosnell here. I want to show you this new poll out from Fox News. This is a Fox News poll, concerns about illegal immigration. All right, this asks people why they are concerned about illegal immigration, okay? And the number one answer, 39%, on what concerns them about illegal immigration is overburdening government programs and services. Coming in second at 16% is leading to an increase in crime. Third, taking away jobs from U.S. citizens came in at 14%. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, that's illustrated by the light blue figures here on the screen. In yellow, that is the 10% that say leading to an increase in terrorism. You just heard that from mayoral candidate in New York City, Curtis Sliwa. And in purple, 9% changing the culture of the country. I'm going to ask you guys both. I'm going to ask you. You don't get to pick two, and you certainly don't get to do all the above. Which of these categories, Brilyn, I'll go to you, is number one for you on your biggest concern for illegal immigration?
Absolutely terrorism. And I think that that's the biggest thing that concerns Americans. Even when we were in that kind of waiting period after the Iran strike, that was, a great bold action by the president. We were then in that situation of what sleeper cells came across the border, the millions of people that, came across under Biden. Where are they? What can they do? What could happen in somewhere like New York? That was a genuine fear. That's still a fear today with any type of sleeper cell group. I mean, these polls confirm what we saw in the last election. Americans want their borders back, and the only ones who don't want borders are the ones who live behind the walls. I mean, we've seen the videos that have gone viral on social media. Democrats used to call illegal immigration a crisis, and now they're just calling it diversity, but the voters aren't genuinely buying it. It's not xenophobia. I mean, well, this is common sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think your concern is validated by what we saw about the number of people on the terror watch list or terror watch list countries that were coming in under the Biden administration. But, Jackson, which one of these would you say is your number one concern on illegal immigration?
I agree that I think crime is the number one concern. You look at what happened with Laken Riley. You look at what happened with Nate Baker at the University of South Carolina, where I go to school. These were people who were killed by illegal immigrants in our country. And so, sure, I think there are a lot of people who come here for a better life and, maybe they cross over illegally, but they're here doing the right thing. All right, I have a little bit more of a heart for that situation. But we have a lot of criminals here, and unfortunately, they all get put into the same basket because if you have a few bad apples, they all turn to bad apples, unfortunately. And so I think crime is a huge concern. I'm giving you two examples, but I could go on and on and on. During the Biden years, we had an influx of people coming into this country, many of which were violent criminals, gang members. They came from insane asylums and other places, and they wreaked havoc on our country. Now, to this poll's credit, I agree that we shouldn't be wasting money from government programs, but that is certainly not as pressing to me as the risk of violence, crime, and terrorism from these illegals in our country.
Well, I don't think there's any wrong answer on this, but my curiosity is where the Gen Z mind is on what is the biggest concern for you.
Yeah.
I'll also open this up to the audience. If you want to jump into the YouTube, Facebook comments, I am curious of yours as well. Again, your options are, if you just had to pick one of the five, it is overburdening government programs and services, leading to an increase in crime, number 2, taking jobs away from Americans, number 3, leading to an increase in terrorism, number 4, and changing the culture of the country, number 5. The overburdening government services one is one that resonates with me, particularly right now because, we can talk about, Medicare, Medicaid, all of these programs, but the one that gets me is when I start hearing about, all the stuff that will go in the wake of a disaster, be it a fire in Maui or a fire in Los Angeles. And look, everyone, regardless of immigration status, suffers at the hands of a catastrophe, of a natural disaster. But the purpose of paying tax dollars is to help the people of the country, and they need no more help than when they are hit with something unavoidable, a natural disaster. And it really, I think, highlights a bad problem when, A, you got deficits, B, you can't afford everything, and C, now we really need you, government, and that money is going to people that are not citizens of this country. But that being said, for me, in 2 days, you can zoom back in on this, mine's purple. Mine's the 9%, changing the culture of the country. And it's not, it is. It is cultural superiority. It is cultural superiority. I do believe there's an American culture. I do believe it's our defining characteristic. I believe it is what has given rise to the idea of American exceptionalism. I believe the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence are the fruits of that culture. The culture is not the fruits of the document. The document is the culture of the fruits. One of my friends famously once said, you could Xerox copy the Constitution of the United States and airlift it and drop it over Bangladesh. Tomorrow, it doesn't turn into Alabama. That's not what happens. It's culture. It's people. And there are great parts of every culture. Every culture. Great parts of the Mexican culture. Great parts of the Canadian culture. Great parts of every culture. That being said, that's why we understand the concept of assimilation. That's why we understand the concept of controlled immigration. That's why we make sure people that come to the United States want to be Americans, not just economic advantages, right? Not just come here to get rich, but understand why this country is one where you can get rich. And it is that culture. And if you have unfettered illegal immigration, people that don't assimilate, don't speak the language, don't understand the values, well, I think if that's the case, yeah, crime's going to be a problem. Terrorism's going to be a problem, but you're going to have a lot of problems. You know, Bangladesh has crime and poverty. Bangladesh has terrorism and corruption. You know, I think I'm in the 9%, which appears to be the minority. Last word to both of you on this, Jackson.
I agree with you. I do think, though, crime is more pressing for me, but I agree. We have a great American culture. It's why we're the most powerful and greatest country on earth. And I think that there's something to be said about that. Obviously, people should long for that culture if they want to come and live here. But I do think that crime is a real serious problem, and we should focus on that as well.
I agree with Jackson, and I agree with Will.
Right.
I think that America is known for its culture around the world. And yes, we can be this melting pot of different people coming in and bringing different foods and bringing different traditions. But at the end of the day, it's still America, and you're not coming here to change our culture. We'll open our arms, we'll give you jobs, we'll give you the opportunity of citizenship, but we're not telling you to strip us of the culture that we fought for and defended for 250 years now. And when our founding fathers didn't fight off the Brits to have people come in and just completely rip our culture away from us on our own land, I think that's where kind of our patriotism riles up in this generation, and we say, no, you're not going to come in here and change that. Bring whatever food you like, bring the traditions, teach us about your customs, but don't change our customs and tell us we're crazy for having them. It's wild.
And I feel the same way about all
it.
the people moving south from up north. So just FYI if anyone's watching.
Is that a shot at Canada?
Well,
Oklahoma?
maybe just the northern states. We have a lot of people moving south, and they want to bring their liberal policies. We're okay. You can leave that for your culture up there.
All right. Good stuff. I loved having you guys on. You can check out Jackson. He's the host of the Jackson Gosnell live show. He's on X at Jackson Gosnell. And you can check out Brilyn at the Brilyn Hollyhand show as well. Intend to have you guys back. Next time I won't mispronounce your name for the first 2/3 of the interview, Brilyn, because it'll be the second times we ever met. Not Brilyn, Brilyn. All right. And Jackson. Thank you, fellas, for being on Will Cain Country.
Thank you, sir. Have a good week.